This little witch doesn't know it, but she's taking some frightening chances of being hurt. Maybe badly hurt. Her costume is very, very dangerous. Can you see the things that make it dangerous?
Hello again, ghouls and goblins, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to take a look at how Halloween was different throughout decades. That's right, in today's video, we're going to look at the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and the O's. We're going through 4 decades here to see how they were similar and how they were different. From the 70s through the O's, a lot of things remained the same. By the time we got to the O's, a lot of things had changed. Now, if you grew up during any of these time frames, you're probably going to enjoy this video, and it's definitely going to be a blast from your Halloween past. So sit back, grab some Halloween candy, candy corn, Kit Kat, Reese's, whatever you want. It's a Halloween lover's dream here, so join me if you dare.
I got a black heart, it's a new start. Welcome to the spooky club. I got a black heart, it's a new start. Welcome to the spooky club. Take that! Join the spooky club.
Have a safe and happy Halloween.
Oh yeah. Right on. Can you dig it? I love the 70s. I love the 70s.
Much like every decade we're going to cover here today, the 1970s started off with a lot of mainstays from previous decades. The biggie here being decorations. Now in the 1970s, you had your traditional blow molds, you had your Beistel cutouts, you had all of that stuff. However, a lot of the Beistel cutouts that I knew weren't around yet. So you had some of the more vintage style Halloween cutouts that were left over from the 1950s and the 1960s. Now, these specifically were seen in houses in the early to mid 1970s. This is the same type of artwork that you would see on the Halloween postcards from the 50s and the 60s. And on that same note, a lot of people in the early 70s were still sending out Halloween postcards. Can you imagine what a time to be alive when you would get a Halloween postcard in your mailbox? I would love to get one in 2026. Now, the 1970s was the absolute boom for Ben Cooper and Collegeville costumes. This is when they came into their prime. Everyone wanted to be everything from Darth Vader to Spider-Man to Holly Hobbie, you name it. Every kid wanted a Ben Cooper or Collegeville costume. Now, you're going to hear me mention this a lot throughout this video because these costumes definitely stick around for a long time. But during the 1970s, that's when cartoons and licensed characters and all of that stuff were reaching their peak. And like I mentioned, everybody wanted to be someone that they saw on Saturday morning cartoons. From Ben Cooper to Collegeville, these were everywhere. From Woolworth to Kmart, you name it, you could find whoever you wanted to be for spooky season.
Halloween fun with one-stop shopping at Woolworth or Woolco for your Halloween needs. Costumes from $1.83 to $3.99, like $6 Million Man, Bionic Woman, superheroes, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, and a new favorite for girls, Holly Hobbie. You can get wrapped candies of every kind, bubblegum, lollipops, fun-sized candy bars. Get this Halloween record, sounds to make you shiver, just $1.89. Make Halloween fun and easy. Make just one stop at Woolworth or Woolco.
Now, while the 1980s and the 1990s gave us boo buckets and all kinds of unique ways to gather our Halloween candy on Halloween night, in the 1970s, most trick-or-treaters opted for a simple pillowcase to fill up their bag of candy. Now, most trick-or-treaters in the 1970s would go out in a group with friends because it was a much simpler time then, and it was much safer to go out without any adult supervision. However, the 1970s is when all of this changed because we got the news that it wasn't so safe. People were sticking razors inside of apples, and they were doing all sorts of nefarious things to candy during Halloween season. This is when the public service announcements started airing. Now, the public service announcements would more or less tell parents to start checking their kids' candy for any objects that seemed suspicious. Even in the 1980s, it got to the point where you could take your candy to the hospital ER and get it x-rayed to see if anything was inside. So sound off in the comments below if you remember the public service announcements starting to air on TV in the 1970s for Halloween safety.
Hey kids, here comes Peter Pumpkin. For a safe Halloween, do what Peter does. Wear a light-colored costume short enough so you don't trip. If you wear a mask, make sure you can see. Makeup's better. Don't crisscross the street. Call on one side, then the other. Parents, set boundaries, and it's time to be home. Carry a flashlight for extra safety. And let's all have a safe Halloween.
Speaking of public service announcements airing on TV, of course, the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown was airing in the 1970s. However, the Garfield Adventure wouldn't come until the 1980s. But there was other specials that aired for Halloween during the 1970s. Of course, the biggie here is the Fat Albert Halloween Special. Now, the Fat Albert Halloween Special premiered in the late 1970s, and it ran in syndication even on the USA Cartoon Express all throughout the 1980s. And it disappeared from TV sometime in the 1990s, but of course was re-released on DVD in the mid to late 2000s. So if you watched the Fat Albert Halloween Special, sound off in the comments below. I know growing up in the 80s, it was always one that I looked forward to because it was a super fun Halloween special.
Hold on to your seat, cause it's that time of year. Time to say,
Hey, hey, hey! It's Fat Albert Halloween Special!
And the climax of the Fright Night festivities will be to get you-know-who.
it's the Halloween scene with the Cosby Kids.
So don't miss the Fat Albert Halloween Special right here.
Don't miss the fun today at 4 here on WDZL Channel 39.
The 1970s was also a game changer in the way that we would have our Halloween breakfast. As a kid in the 1980s, I took for granted Count Chocula, Frankenberry, and Boo Berry. I just assumed they were always around, but kids before the 1970s grew up in a time where they didn't exist. It wasn't until the 1970s that we got Count Chocula, who was the first cereal monster to debut, and he was a game changer for all of us during Halloween season. Now, there used to be a time when all of these cereals were sold year-round, but now in 2026, the only time that you can buy any of the monster cereals, sadly, is during spooky season. I know personally, my favorite is always Frankenberry, and ironically enough, Count Chocula is probably my least favorite out of all of them, but if it wasn't for Count Chocula, none of the cereal monsters would have existed.
Welcome to the wishing well, when I wish for my delicious strawberry-flavored cereal, Frankenberry.
You're all wet, Frankenberry. Everyone wishes for my delicious chocolate cereal, Count Chocula.
Well, wrong, old Chocula. Frankenberry has delicious strawberry-flavored marshmallows.
Nothing's as good as the delicious chocolate marshmallows of my Count Chocula.
Kids wish for Frankenberry.
Kids wish for Count Chocula.
I wish for both. Maybe.
You can enjoy this nutritious breakfast with Count Chocula.
Frankenberry.
And McDonald's did not bring out the Boo Buckets. As I mentioned earlier, most kids, 70s, took out pillowcases to get their tricks and treats on Halloween night. But McDonald's and restaurants like Hardee's were in on the Halloween action in the 1970s. Hardee's, I believe, had like creepy, crawly stuff that came out of a fun machine. Yes, they actually had a Halloween fun machine set up inside of Hardee's restaurants. Now, if you're not familiar with Hardee's restaurants, they're more or less the same as Carl Jr.'s out on the West Coast. Now, McDonald's, while they weren't doing Boo Buckets, they were doing Halloween gift certificates that you could give out to trick-or-treaters in the 1970s, which, of course, rose to popularity, seeing the Halloween candy scare that I mentioned earlier in the video. So giving out gift certificates seemed like a much safer option for trick-or-treaters back then.
Ever hear of a gift certificate that turns into a soft drink? Oh, it can happen this Halloween. When you give out McDonald's Halloween gift certificates, kids take them to McDonald's and they get a McDonald's soft drink. Oh, A book of 20 Halloween gift certificates costs only $1. And can turn into 20 regular soft drinks. It must be the magic of Halloween.
Nobody can do it like McDonald's can.
Nobody.
So, the 1970s also started giving us horror movies that now have become legendary icon status in the horror community. Now, before the 1970s, we obviously had the classics. We had Dracula, we had Frankenstein, we had The Night of the Living Dead. But the 1970s was a game changer. 1978 gave us what is now a Halloween staple, that being John Carpenter's classic Halloween. Yes, 1978 gave us our first look at Michael Myers and Laurie Strode and Dr. Loomis. We also would end up getting the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Exorcist, just to name a few. The 1970s was a game changer for the horror movie scene and definitely led us to the 1980s, where horror movies exploded into popularity with characters like Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees, who would become iconic Halloween staples for us to watch. And then of course the 90s, we would get Ghostface, followed later on in the 2010s by Art the Clown. So sound off in the comments below if you remember in the 1970s when all of these movies debuted, like Halloween, Texas Chainsaw, and The Exorcist.
Michael Myers. Maybe he's just misunderstood. Maybe he has trouble making friends. Maybe his mom never calls. Or maybe he's just a monster.
On Halloween, he came back.
Halloween and Halloween 2, only on USA. Coming up next.
And not only was TV and movies starting to change, but also music was starting to change. That's right. In the 1970s, music was taking a heavier shift, and we were getting away from disco, finally. We were starting to get shock rock like Kiss. Alice Cooper, who started in the 60s, was becoming more popular with his hit No More Mr. Nice Guy, and it was a game changer. Heavy metal was definitely born, and it was on the rise in the 1970s. And of course, Led Zeppelin was blowing up the charts also. So the 1970s ultimately led way to the hair bands from the 1980s. So without the 70s, metal would not be what it was in the 1980s. I know personally, heavy metal is always going to be my favorite genre of music. I'll listen to just about anything, but heavy metal is always going to be my go-to. In the 1970s, definitely were to thank for that. Who doesn't hear Blue Oyster Cult's Don't Fear the Reaper? And who doesn't think about the Halloween movie? I know I sure do.
Outrageous Rock Group wants you to kiss your face. Introducing Kiss Your Face Makeup. Just like the makeup worn by Gene, Paul, Peter, or Ace. Kiss Your Face Makeup has all the equipment you need. Professional makeup, brushes, and cream remover with makeup diagrams so you can look like Gene, look like Paul, look like Peter, or look like Ace. So kiss your face and get your act together. Kiss Your Face Makeup is from Remco.
Alright, so that's a look at how Halloween was in the 1970s. Now, I wasn't born in the 1970s, but I know people that were. That's how they told me they remember it. And you can also Google it yourself and see how it was in the 1970s. But coming up next, we're going into the 1980s. So we're going to put the VHS in and we're going to fast forward because I definitely remember a lot about the next 3 decades.
I love the 80s. I love the 80s.
Oh, are we doing the 80s scene now? Oh, okay, sorry. I was just trying to rewind my Lita Ford cassette tape with a pencil. Alright, so Poison, shirt, check. Bandana, check. I think I've got everything I need for us to travel back in time to the decade of decadence and see what Halloween was like during what I consider the best time for Halloween, and that was the 1980s. So let's get into this part.
Let's get ready for the Halloween party! Wow, it's gonna be spooky and fun! Let's shake up our new natural light sticks! And shine in the dark! Let's light up the jack-o'-lantern! And let's light up
Light Up Light Stick comes with every jack-o'-lantern or monster head, each sold separately. Or you can buy light sticks alone. Light Up Monster Heads, Light Up Inflatable Jack-o'-lantern, and the light stick itself, each sold separately.
That's right, as you just saw in the commercial, back in the day we had light up monster head toys to help light our way on Halloween night. That's right, traditional flashlights weren't good enough for us kids back in the 1980s. We had to have new, cool, light up monster head toys to light up the night on Halloween night. Now you could find most of these at Kmart or Walgreens or places like that, and they were relatively cheap, about $1 for any of these.
Well, I'm ready for Halloween.
And if enough trick-or-treaters don't show up, you're ready for next Halloween, too.
No way, because Laverdius will give me full credit on all unopened bags of candy purchased at their stores.
This 12-ounce bag of Whoppers milk chocolate or a 10-ounce bag of Milk Duds chocolate-covered caramels only $1.59 at all Laverdius super drugstores.
How sweet it is.
That's right, who in the 1980s did not enjoy a good old-fashioned trip to their local grocery store? Now, while Nestle Crunch and Baby Ruth and Reese's and Hershey's are what we all know from every generation, let's touch base here for a moment on some of the foods that were really popular in the 1980s, that being the Vampire's Secret Ice Pop. Now, these were sold throughout the year. You could go on a hot July day and get a Vampire's Secret Ice Pop, but I believe back in the day they were either referred to as the Vampire's Secret Ice Pop or the Dracula Popsicle. Either way, these definitely were a staple and a highlight for spooky season in the 1980s, and even Summerween before it was a thing, because who would not want to sink their fangs into a Dracula Popsicle? Next up, long before Pillsbury was known for being the Halloween go-to cookie, we had these Halloween cookies. They came in a nice, festive Halloween box with a hologram sticker on the front, and they were more or less like butter cookies, but the box definitely made it, and they even had a cutout mask that you could wear for your Halloween costume if you were doing Halloween on the budget. Sound off in the comments below if you remember these cookies or the Vampire's Secret Dracula Ice Pops.
The unthinkable has happened. The impossible is now true. I've been brought to life in a horrifyingly real iced lolly from Walls. Get your fangs into the strangest lolly you've ever tasted before it's too late. Walls Dracula. It's really horrible.
Now, of course, everyone knew about Frankenberry, Boo Berry, and Count Chocula, but the 1980s also gave us more spooky cereals than the three mainstays, that being the Ghostbusters cereal, seeing that Ghostbusters had two hit movies in the 1980s. Who didn't love a box of Ghostbusters cereal? Now, they did return in 2016 when they did the Ghostbusters remake starring Melissa McCarthy, but the recipe definitely was not the same. And who could not love the hologram Slimer sticker on the front of the box? We also even had a Gremlins cereal back in the 1980s. Of course, don't feed that to Gizmo after midnight or you could regret it. So, sound off in the comments below if you ate any of these spooky cereals back in the 1980s.
There's a cereal in the neighborhood. New Slimer ghosts through flavored O's. Ghostbusters with milk and juice and toast. A complete breakfast with the ghost. Ghostbusters!
If you liked Ghostbusters the movie, you'll love the real thing. You could win a trip to the real Ghostbusters headquarters, bring a friend, and meet a real Ghostbuster. Ghostbusters! Look for the record in specially marked boxes of Ghostbusters Cookie Crisp and Dinosaurs.
Now, of course, what would a 1980s Halloween be without Elvira? That's right, the Mistress of Dark herself. Elvira was literally everywhere in the 1980s, from beer commercials to midnight matinees. She even had her own comic book back in the day. That's right, Elvira was a symbol of iconic Halloween status in the 1980s. Definitely one of my most memorable things was always seeing Elvira doing the beer commercials.
Wanna go psycho with me, Elvira? Here at the Bates Motel? Look for me wherever they sell mug root beer. And enter the Go Psycho with Elvira contest. You can be my guest at Universal Studios in Hollywood for a monstrous bash at the Bates Motel. Shower anyone? This Halloween, go psycho with Elvira and win a party with mug root beer and me.
I love my mug.
I love it.
Now, long before Goosebumps was the go-to spooky book for kids in the 90s, in the 80s we had scary stories to tell in the dark and more scary stories to tell in the dark. Now, these books became so iconic that schools nationwide started doing a ban on them because of some of the stories and of some of the artwork inside of the books, such as The Bride and, of course, The Red Spot. A lot of these stories were mentioned in the movie Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark that was released a few years ago. These definitely were a staple of my childhood, and fortunately for me, they were never banned at my school's library. Sound off in the comments below if you used to read Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark long before Goosebumps made its way into school libraries.
Friday, Fox presents a Halloween special.
I need a really scary mask, like that one.
Based on the bestsellers of R.L. Stine.
I can't get it off me!
Goosebumps, the haunted mask.
His face. It's your face now.
Friday at 8, 7 Central on Fox.
And if you watched part 1, I touched base on Halloween specials that no longer air on network TV, such as It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, and Garfield's Halloween Adventure. But back in the 1980s, it seems like almost every television show had a Halloween special. It doesn't matter what the show was, they had a Halloween special. Even The Fall Guy, Knight Rider, Family Matters, everything from drama to comedy had a Halloween special back in the 1980s. It was definitely must-see TV back then.
Mystery Tuesday. The legend comes alive. Vampire? No! When Sam leaps into the light of the undead. Is it Halloween tonight? Well, you quantum leap vampire's blood. Then it's a special night for Unsolved. A girl home alone is murdered. One man's on death row. Another's confessed to the crime. Who did it? Quantum Leap and Unsolved. NBC Mystery Tuesday.
And as I mentioned in part 1 of the retro Halloween special, things that aren't around anymore, specifically the retail stores that aren't around anymore. But what about the sales ad circulars that went with those now defunct Halloween stores? Who didn't enjoy getting the Sunday paper and seeing the Halloween sales ad circulars? I mean, look at this right here. A blow mold for 96 cents and Halloween costumes for less than $2. These were just as enjoyable as looking at the Christmas wish books back in the day. I know for me, they definitely were, from stores like Kmart and Car Drugs and Rite Aid and all of those places, including Woolworths. Even places like Toys R Us would get in on the Halloween sales ads, and Walgreens, and just about any retail store that you could think of back then.
Toys R Us has the Big Bird Halloween costume and the Yoda Halloween costume for trick-or-treating.
What's up? You have selected.
It's time to pump up the 90s.
Welcome. You've got mail.
You know, as I'm getting ready to film this 1990s Halloween episode, something just isn't right here. Something's missing. What is missing? Do I need to say this is gonna be the best video ever? As if. Clueless reference, of course. Eureka. And I'm not talking about Eureka's Castle from the 90s. I know what's missing. Eureka. I have discovered it. I need my flannel shirt. If we're gonna do the 90s, we gotta do this right. And I need my flannel shirt to make this feel just like the 90s. Alright. Bush shirt, check. Flannel shirt, check. Something still seems to be missing. What is missing? What is missing from the 90s? You didn't do trucker caps in the 90s? No. With your flannel shirt, you had to do the beanie. You gotta get your whole Seattle vibe going on. There we go. Now, we're ready to do this 1990s Halloween. So never mind. It's just a 90s Halloween.
Come to the haunted house spectacular.
And 21st from 10 to 6 p.m. And goblins who are planning to attend. Who dare to enter the Paso Civic Center? And $1 for your kid is all you'll pay to enter. Come on.
So, the 1990s, and the early 90s specifically, resembled a lot of the 1980s. You had the cutouts, you had all of those similarities from the previous decade. But around 91, 92, things started taking shape and becoming a different decade, a different way we did Halloween. And the biggest there was a mainstay that started in the 80s, and that was what we all would drink, and that was High C Ecto Cooler. Now, while it started in the 1980s with the rise of the Ghostbusters, by the 1990s, just about every kid, no matter if it was Summerween, Halloween, or everything in between back then, every kid on Halloween definitely wanted Ecto Cooler before they went out trick-or-treating, because Ecto Cooler was your go-to juice box back in the day. Now, while the Ghostbusters were no longer really popular in the 1990s, Ecto Cooler remained on store shelves until the early 2000s, and Slimer was surprisingly still featured right on the juice box. Now, that's really amazing, seeing that Slimer wasn't even a big deal in the 90s. But if you were a 90s kid, you didn't question it. Everyone loved Ecto Cooler.
This summer, coming to a supermarket near you, there's going to be a great new high-C flavor with an outrageous fruit taste. And what are we going to call it? Ecto Cooler. High-C Ecto Cooler. Slimer's new fruit drink. You've been warned.
Now, as the Halloween decorations and costumes started changing through the 90s, cutouts and all of that stuff kind of took a back seat to new decorations that were coming. Now, the biggie here, and I'm probably going to butcher the way I say this, because much like Bi-Stool, I used to refer to that as B-Stool cutouts, but then I found out it's called Bi-Stool cutouts. There's the little witches and all of the little characters that were mainly sold at places like Kmart and Rite Aid and Car Drug and CVS and all of those stores. They were called Gimme or Jimmy witches. And they also had like fiber optic witches and Draculas and all of that stuff. Again, most of them were sold at retail stores, drugstores, and all of those. And they really started coming in to their own in the 1990s. Now, I've got a bunch of those in my collection, but the one that I can easily assess right now is the Halloween fiber optic witch. All of these type of tabletop pieces definitely became a mainstay in the 90s decade. And it's a good bet that your parents probably had one of these decorating their house back in the day. These kind of became the blow molds for the 1990s, even though blow molds still transitioned from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and a lot of people still decorated with them in the 90s. But these Gimme or Jimmy pieces definitely came to popularity back in the 90s.
For great Halloween fun, pick up some spooky decorations at Walgreens. Just $7.99 each. Scary sound-activated Halloween figures, battery-operated pirate skull, witches, skeletons, and more. Stock up on Halloween candy, too. Walgreens has a wide selection of treats and goodies of all kinds. And it's time to order your holiday photo greeting cards. Put your favorite photo on any of 6 beautiful designs. All orders include a free marker pen. Treat yourself to savings this week at Walgreens.
So, in part 1, when I looked at Halloween in the 1980s, I talked about scary stories to tell in the dark and how those books were super popular back then. And I gave you a warning that when the 90s rolled around, they would be replaced with Goosebumps. Now, Goosebumps, nothing was more popular than Goosebumps in the 90s. They had Happy Meals. Well, not necessarily Happy Meals. They had a Pizza Hut kids meal. They had a Taco Bell kids meal. Happy Meals, of course, were still Boo Buckets and all of that stuff that McDonald's was still doing, but we'll touch base on that in a little bit. But Goosebumps had Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, they had the TV specials, the Haunted Mask, they had the books, they had the VHS tapes, anything you could think of. Goosebumps back in the 90s had their name on it. Now, I've got one right here at my fingertips. Here is Goosebumps VHS, The Werewolf of Fever Swamp. Nice old clamshell case here. Goosebumps, super popular. And if I remember correctly, Goosebumps didn't raise as much controversy as Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I don't think school libraries put a ban on these, but I definitely enjoyed my share of Goosebumps, especially the Haunted Mask.
It's the Pizza Head Show.
Hey everybody, I'm on my way to Pizza Hut to get a Goosebumps kids pack. Yay!
Almost there.
Hey, this isn't the right way.
Well, Scarecrow Steve says it is.
He's no scarecrow.
Sure he is.
Uh-oh, I think I woke the neighbors.
Look, Pizza Head, you'll be perfectly safe in there.
Okay.
Relax, the Goosebumps guys just want you for dinner. See you in the next lifetime. Now you can collect one of 3 ghoulish Goosebumps glow and tell story card sets when you buy a Pizza Hut kids pack.
And much like the 1980s, as I was mentioning during the Goosebumps segment, McDonald's, of course, had the Boo Bucket Steel. They had the McNugget Buddy Halloween Buddies. And at one point in time, they even replaced the Boo Buckets with little trick-or-treating bags. So McDonald's definitely still had their thumbprint on fast food Halloween in the 90s. So, sound off in the comments below if you remember getting any of the McNugget Halloween Buddies, the Boo Buckets, or the little trick-or-treat bag.
It's Halloween.
Ronald, why are the McNugget buddies so scared?
Because
we're chicken.
Oh, you don't want to be chicken on Halloween. Yeah. You don't want to be a scaredy cat either.
What's coming up at McDonald's this Halloween? Ghoulish McNugget buddies with costumes you can rearrange, plus masks to give your face a change. You get one in each Happy Meal you buy. Now that's handy.
Now, TV specials. We talked about TV specials in the 80s. Shows like It's a Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, and Garfield's Halloween Adventure. All of that stuff spilled over into the 90s and stayed on network TV. It wasn't until a few years ago that most of this stuff got pulled off of network TV and you can only stream it now. But in the 90s, all of that stuff was a mainstay. But we're not going to talk about all of that stuff. No. What really rose to popularity in the 90s was The Simpsons, Treehouse of Horror. Marge would agree. Treehouse of Horror. While The Simpsons first premiered on the Tracy Ullman Show in the 1980s, of course, The Simpsons exploded into popularity in the 90s, and I believe it was 1990 that they had the first annual Treehouse of Horror. Became a tradition I looked forward to every Halloween. But the biggie here, and I believe the first 2 installments aired in the late 80s, but they took a life of of their own in the 90s, and that was the Roseanne Halloween specials. Nobody did Halloween like the Roseanne TV show. Those were definitely a staple for all of us in the 1990s.
Next, you're in for a big surprise, and you're in for a shock when the Queen of Fright,
I'm Beaver Cleaver,
has her big night. Roseanne's all-new Halloween special.
And if we're going to talk about TV shows in the 1990s, if you were lucky enough to have HBO, there's a good chance that you got to enjoy Tales from the Crypt. Now, when Tales from the Crypt originated, it was in the 1950s in EC Comics. That was a great spooky comic book, and it'll probably be the all-time greatest spooky comic book ever. Now, there's been talks to bring back Tales from the Crypt. However, it seems to always have a reason why it never comes back. They've been talking about bringing it back, rebooting it, if you will, for the last 5 or 6 years, but nothing has happened so far. But I don't think that we're going to ever have a time when the Crypt Keeper was as popular as he was in the 1990s. He was so popular that they started reissuing some of those EC comics, and he had his own line of action figures as well as a Saturday morning cartoon. That's right, even in the 1990s, Tales from the Crypt had a Saturday morning cartoon.
Ready for a scare? You must meet Crypt Keeper!
Greetings, Frank Bang!
Crypt Keeper, come back and meet my friends!
Hello, boils and ghouls!
Why don't you offer your fiends something cold and wet? Yes, I think that's exactly what our little fiends need! Crypt Keeper, you're the host with the most! The most rancid flesh, that is! 12-inch talking Crypt Keeper! Promise!
We're going to end this by talking about video games, because the 1990s was the video game explosion. Of course, video games came to popularity in the 80s with Atari, the Game Boy, the Nintendo Entertainment System, and all of that. But with Super Nintendo, the Sega Genesis, and all of these games coming in the 1990s, PlayStation, Nintendo 64, you name it, the 90s was the boom of the video game industry. We got to talk about 2 honorable mentions here, at least from my time frame, and the first one going to 1990 for the Nintendo Entertainment System during the Nintendo Entertainment System's dying days before the SNES came out with the 16-bit cartridges, and that goes to Maniac Mansion. Now, Maniac Mansion was based off of an ABC Family TV show of the same name, put into video game form, and it was a super hard game. It's one that I had a time trying to figure out and beat. I don't think I ever even beat it, because back then you could only get magazines that had cheat codes in it. You couldn't go on YouTube and figure out how to do it. The next game would be from the Super Nintendo Entertainment System from around 1993, and that is the infamous Zombies Ate My Neighbors game. Now, that one is a super expensive game on the collectible market. If you own that one, consider yourself lucky, because it is a hard one to come by these days, especially mint in box. It is considered a treasure in the video game collecting market. So, sound off in the comments below if you ever had either of those games.
You gotta tell me, is he gonna pull through?
Yes.
The truth?
Well, probably not.
Oh!
She pushed me.
What happens to Lenny? Watch Maniac Mansion tonight at 6:30, 5:30 Central on the Family Channel.
The 2000s. I've got to use my digital camera to document my Halloween photos. But wait, I can't. My batteries are dead.
It's time for the 13 days of Halloween on Fox Family. 13 nights of scary movies and specials, including the original series, The Fearing Mind. The 13 days of Halloween, all this week on Fox Family. Brought to you in part by Alvin and the Chipmunks Meet the Wolfman.
Alright, so here we go. It's time to journey to the 2000s Halloween. I've got my Hollywood Undead shirt and my Von Dutch trucker cap. I think we're ready to see what life was like during spooky season in the 2000s. Now, of course, in the 80s and the 90s and even times before that, everyone's go-to store was Kmart, Walmart or Target, Woolworths, any places like that. It's where everyone went for their Halloween decorating needs. But in the 2000s, all of that changed because Spirit Halloween stores, as well as other pop-up Halloween stores, started appearing nationwide during spooky season. That's right, it's hard to believe a time when vacant buildings like Kmart, ironically enough, didn't put on a costume and become a Spirit Halloween. Now, can you imagine this day and age not having a Spirit Halloween store? Well, before the 2000s, it was more common than not that your city did not have a Spirit Halloween store. So that is the biggest thing that changed for Halloween in the 2000s, was Spirit Halloween stores popping up nationwide.
For whatever you're doing this Halloween, Spirit Halloween is your one-stop Halloween superstore. Experience the Fright Zone inside the store with killer haunted house decor and animated monsters for your front porch or front office. An enormous selection of costumes for the entire family. A large selection of wigs, shoes, hats, makeup, and accessories. New shipments arrive every week, so grab your friends and don't just shop for Halloween. Experience your Halloween superstore, Spirit Halloween.
Now, on that same note, with Spirit Halloween popping up, that also was a game changer for the way Halloween decorations were put out. Most of the time, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, Halloween decorations consisted of blow molds, cutouts, all of that stuff that I've documented many times here on the channel. But when Spirit Halloween came around, it was a game changer because we started seeing more and more animatronics. We didn't really see a lot of that stuff in the 80s and the 90s. Most animatronics we had back then were like little tabletop pieces from the Gimme Corporation, little strobe ghosts and stuff like that. But now we were getting full life-size animatronics. And of course, one of the biggies here being in the early 2000s, and it spanned to the late 2000s, was like the zombified butler. We had him, we had creepy animatronics that were clowns, we had all of this stuff that we had never seen before, and of course zombies had an outbreak, no pun intended. Nothing was bigger than zombies in the 2000s, so there was tons of zombie animatronics. There was also an emphasis on body parts. We would start seeing like little rubber body parts opposed to what we see before with rubber rats and rubber bats. Now we were getting body parts popping up. And we would also get what has become a Halloween staple. We would get the crawling hand animatronic that we see sold almost everywhere during spooky season now. So it was almost like blow molds and cutouts and all of that stuff took a back seat to all of the animatronics.
It's Halloween at the Knickknackery, and it won't cost you an arm and a leg. Use your brain. Stay ahead of your friends. Listen up. Just put it down, and we'll lend a hand in selecting from hundreds of styles of masks, as well as costumes, wigs, makeup, accessories, and indoor and outdoor decorations. Have a heart. We need the sale. And it's a hair-raising experience. We'll keep an eye out for you at the Knickknackery.
Also, costumes started changing. No longer were you seeing Ben Cooper and Collegeville costumes being sold anywhere, not Walmart, Target, or Spirit Halloween. Nowadays, it was either DIY makeup kits and latex masks. Those were all the rage in the 2000s. And a lot of people were taking an emphasis on doing Hollywood movie characters like Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean, Shrek, Mean Girls. Harry Potter was a huge one in the 2000s. This was a game changer for the way that people dressed up in costumes. Now, also in the 2000s, with Spirit Halloween emerging, Leg Avenue started making what they referred to as the sexy costumes, which a lot of older people would wear. So now we had people that grew up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s as kids, as teenagers. They were doing adult-themed Halloween parties because Spirit Halloween had a massive selection of adult Halloween costumes, something that we saw lightly sprinkled in retail stores back in the day, but with Spirit Halloween, it was a game changer as adults finally had a reason to have their own Halloween parties and dress up.
Vampire things and tell. And for all me pirate friends and witches, we have plenty of accessories.
What do you mean you don't like clowns? Now I sound like I'm Scottish.
And for all me ladies, we have plenty of costumes for you to choose from.
And once you had your costume ready, if you were a kid in the 2000s, there's a good chance that you didn't have the privilege of trick-or-treating. By this time, trunk-or-treating was starting to replace trick-or-treating nationwide. And that, to me, was one of the final nails in the coffin of traditional Halloween. But I get it. The world was changing. It's becoming a different place completely. And you definitely had to make sure that your kids were safe. So trunk-or-treating now is still a big thing, more so in my area than it is trick-or-treating. So sound off in the comments below if in the 2000s you got to do trick-or-treating or you were subjected, unfortunately, to trunk-or-treat. And like I mentioned, people started having Halloween parties, and they had Halloween parties in real life, but also the rise of chat rooms and MySpace and webcams. People started having virtual online parties. They could party with friends from different states and be in chat rooms and have their own Halloween parties. It was definitely the beginning of the social media craze with MySpace and AOL Instant Messenger and Yahoo Messenger and all of the chat rooms that you could go in and have a good time with people from all around the world if you didn't feel like leaving your home on Halloween night.
America Online. It's like one big family.
AOL's great. It's everything I want, all in one place.
I use my buddy list.
Incredibly easy. 24-hour customer service. All my friends email.
AOL brings the world to you.
It's my guide to the whole internet.
I love finding new music. Leave me breathless. I get instant messages from John.
They have parental controls. Very simple to use.
AOL has it all.
Yeah, it's true. We met on America Online.
America Online. So easy to use. No wonder it's number one.
Talk about TV specials because that's a big staple for every generation that grew up. And by the 2000s, Charlie Brown and Garfield were kind of on the decline and they weren't as popular as they once were. By the 2000s, the Garfield Halloween special by the late 2000s was completely pulled off of network TV. The Charlie Brown special was still hanging by a thread for about another decade, but it would be a few years later that new traditions would come in and you would have a Toy Story Halloween special as well as a Shrek Halloween special, as well as people tuning in to channels like ABC Family to watch Hocus Pocus marathons and all the spooky movies like that, like Nightmare Before Christmas. It was starting to change. Charlie Brown and Garfield were left behind back in the 80s and the 90s. A new generation wanted their own specials, and they got that in the forms of what I just mentioned, as well as Disney Channel blocks of Halloween programming during spooky season.
Oktoberfest continues on Disney Channel.
I think you're being pranked. What's the boogeyman?
I do not have an imaginary friend.
Don't Look Under the Bed starts now.
And then, of course, parents used to take pictures of their kids in their costumes with their Polaroid cameras back in the day. But now it was a game changer. You had a digital camera. Yep, you could take pictures of your ghouls and goblins with your digital camera and you could upload it to your MySpace or email it to family members in other states, and you could instantly share with them what your kid was for Halloween that year. Definitely was a game changer and one of the earliest signs that started making the world a much smaller place by being able to show people what was going on right there when they weren't able to be there with you. And by the mid-2000s, Ecto Cooler was long gone, and Kool-Aid, Ghoul-Aid, had started making its way onto store shelves. And while Ecto Cooler did not survive the test of time, albeit its return in 2016 for the Ghostbusters movie, Kool-Aid, Ghoul-Aid is still a Halloween tradition and available every Halloween season.
Wake up! You're dreaming! These new mad science twists are really good!
Mad scientist? Where?
No, mad science twists! Rainbow powder, new flavor!
And while they were around in the 90s, attractions and haunts like HHN, Universal Horror Nights definitely started becoming more popular in the 2000s as more and more people wanted more bang for their buck with a more Hollywood style budget scare than their local neighborhood haunts.
So what's my future?
You don't have one.
Universal Studios Hollywood presents Jason, Freddy, and Leatherface at Halloween Horror Nights. Get your tickets before it's too late.
So there you go. That's kind of how Halloween was in the 2000s. Sound off in the comments below if you remember it, being an adult, a teenager, or a kid, and share your memories down in the comments below. And if you like this type of video, also be sure to check out the one from the 80s and the 90s, as I've covered both of those decades as well. And if you like this type of content and you're new here, I do all things spooky, holiday related, and retro related here on Derek BlackHearts Spooky Club. So if you're new here, how about slashing that subscribe button, because there's plenty more spooky, Halloween, and retro content headed your way. And be sure to turn on those notifications so you don't miss any of the video premieres or the live streams or the shorts. So until next time, I'll see you on the dark side.
I got a black heart, it's a new start. Welcome to the Spooky Club. I got a black heart, it's a new start. Welcome to the Spooky Club. Take that! Join the Spooky